Hi, I'm Dana, and welcome to episode 6 of Learning to be Autistic. I've decided that this episode's going to be about executive dysfunction because boy is it kicking my ass today. I'm having a bad bloody day with executive dysfunction today. So it's the perfect day to make a video about it because otherwise I'm not getting around to making a video. For anyone new, this series is about me learning to be who I am as an autistic person and hopefully providing some relatability or some help or some education or something to somebody else. If you haven't watched the other parts, I'll link part 1. I still haven't figured out which corner I need to point to, but it's one of them. It'll be linked. So let's get into today's episode. To give you the quick scientific rundown of what executive function is, I'm gonna have to read my notes. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at memorising things. So executive function is the control, management and regulation of your actions and emotions and feelings and so on. I say so on. Thoughts is the only other one. So that involves planning, problem solving, attention, working memory, verbal reasoning, inhibition, cognitive flexibility, initiating and monitoring actions. So that's stuff like cooking, cleaning, self-care, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically everything you do is controlled by your executive function in your brain. And for a lot of neurodivergent people like me, we have executive dysfunction. The best way that I've seen this explained is that it's imagine there's a manager, okay, in your brain. And if you've got a shit manager in a shop, that means paperwork's getting left about, things that need to be in place aren't in place. It's just a shit show. People don't know what they're meant to be doing. People are sitting off. He's already gone for his lunch, it just turns into a shit show when you've got a bad manager. And it's like that in your brain. Imagine your brain's the manager and all the signals that it sends to make you do things, like the little meat puppets we are. They're the workers that they're managing, but they're doing a really shit job of it. So that means that sometimes, like today, it can be very, very difficult to start anything or to do anything or to just fucking take a pause and actually think about anything ever. Now, I'm making this video today because, like I say, my executive dysfunction today has just been up the fucking walls so far. Because there's a whole host of different things that come to play with executive dysfunction. And obviously, it's different for everyone that experiences this. This is not the be-all and end-all of experiences. It's just mine. So this morning, I had I had 3 big issues this morning, which was number 1. I was reading a fanfic of my favourite show, and it was a real good fanfic. And it's that whole inhibition thing, being able to stop or start something. I wanted to stop reading that fanfic and get my shit together and start doing stuff. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And that's where it's so frustrating, because it looks like I'm lazy. And that's what I got called a lot as a teenager. We'll go into that in a bit. But it looks like I'm just sat there reading my fucking fanfic without a care in the world that I need to hoover and do the dishes and sort my fucking self out. It makes it look like I'm just not bothering. And realistically, there's all this inner turmoil of I need to be doing that and I need to be doing this and I should get up and do it now. Now. And it just doesn't fucking happen. So that's both the inhibition of my brain's very focused on this is my special interest, this show is everything to me. And this fan fiction is near enough just the perfect continuation of the show. I couldn't get my mind off it. I couldn't stop reading. And I know that it's well, everyone's had that book that you just can't put down. And it's no, I've read thrillers where I'm I can't put it down. But if my cat was meowing, I'd put it down and it'd be oh, are you okay, Ringo? But when it's that kind of thing, I glance at him and make sure he's not dying or anything. But I'm not getting up to check on him because I'm so on it that I can't. And for someone that already has issues with getting started or finishing a task, it kind of just doesn't happen then, does it? So the last issue that I've had this morning is that I also didn't know what video I wanted to film. I knew that I wanted to film possibly an episode of this. Didn't know which one, didn't know what I wanted the subject matter to be on, so I watched a bunch of YouTube videos from other people to try and be is any of this prompting thoughts in me that they're not saying? Is any of this making me think? But it wasn't. And then I was oh well, I could do a fashion video, but do I want to do the suit styling one, or do I want to do this one, or do I want to do that one that I've been thinking about? And in the end, you just sat there for like 2 hours, and it's like, I could have done 2 of the video ideas in that time, and instead I've been sitting here staring at my telly watching other people on YouTube without even really absorbing what they're saying, without enjoying the content, just completely wrapped up in my own head, while also not actually doing anything. I don't mean to just like rant at you, but it's just incredibly frustrating. And it's especially frustrating because, like I say, to anyone outside of my brain, I just look super fucking lazy. Now, I only got my autism diagnosis at 21. I went through all of high school, all of that shit, with autism and executive dysfunction, with no one knowing. And like, even when people know, a lot of them aren't great, a lot of people's reactions aren't brilliant. And school was a tough time because on the one hand, you've got like, I love routine. Routine is fantastic for me. But also, the bell's just rang and everyone's leaving class, but I haven't finished writing what I want to fucking write yet. And I cannot leave until I've written it. But the teacher's literally telling me to fucking go. So I'm like carrying my notebook or scribbling shit down, and I'm just like, it just didn't work for me. Throughout my entire life, any area that was mine, like my bedroom, we had a playroom when I was a kid, it makes it sound very posh and middle class. It was a cupboard that my mum would like put shelves up and then shove me toys on. And I thought it was the best thing in the world at the time, like, but that was my playroom. But any space that was mine was just a mess. And it wasn't like I didn't care about my stuff. Like I deeply, deeply care about like stupid inanimate objects. It wasn't that, and I'd be fucking heartbroken if anything got broken. Like, sometimes my mum would go in my room and she'd just step on stuff because she didn't know that, like, I know where every fucking thing is and I know what path I take, and now you've broken shit and I'm going to cry about it for the next 6 hours because it's so much more than just you've broken something. But it wasn't the mess in that kind of way. It was a mess in the way of, like, I know where everything is. It's where I left it. It just so happens that I felt able to leave that task while I was in the middle of doing it on the left-hand side of my bedroom floor. And it just so happens the next task that I was able to move on to was on the next bit of floor and the next bit of floor. And I haven't gotten around to going back to it yet, but I will. So it needs to stay where it was, but it looks like it's a mess. And that was like my entire childhood, like from the time that I had a bedroom kind of thing, up until, like, I don't want to say now because we'll get to that soon, but yeah, it's been a whole thing. I can't keep my room tidy. It's just the fact of my life. But especially in high school was when I really wished that I'd known at least what executive dysfunction was, that I had something to relate to. Obviously, when you're a teenager, you suddenly have a lot more responsibilities. Like, that transition from childhood to being a teenager just brought on a lot of stuff for me. I already had like my own issues because we'd moved to different countries and stuff, and it wasn't a great time for me to be hitting the teen years anyway. But then it's also like, I need to study more. I'm still having to go to school like all the fucking time, which was a whole challenge of its own. And then I'm having to study like twice as much because GCSEs are coming up and your whole life's about to change. And then I'm having to do more chores around the house because personally my dad wasn't very well, so I had to do more around the house. And then I had my own like weird creative personal projects as well. And I was going to Lipper 419 on Saturday, so I had one day off a week, and I'd be sat on the couch like reading or watching something or whatever else, you know, and my parents would want me to do this thing. They'd want me to load the dishwasher, they'd want me to bring my dirty clothes out my bedroom, you know, something so small. And I just had nothing left. Like, near enough every fucking argument I had with my parents as a teenager was that they asked me to do something a week ago, 7 hours ago, you know, whatever. They asked me to do this thing and it hasn't been done. And they know what I have been doing. I've been sitting there like reading fucking Tumblr fanfics or listening to music or watching a movie. And it's laziness, isn't it? It's just laziness. You didn't bother to get up and go and do the thing because you're lazy. And that being drilled into you is very unpleasant. And it's not laziness. I was never fucking lazy. It was executive dysfunction. You know, and I got that in school a lot as well because I wouldn't turn in homework, or I'd turn in homework and they'd be like, this is an assignment I set like 6 months ago. This isn't what we're doing anymore. That happened more than once. Or I had a few times that I actually did turn in homework and the teacher lost it. And it was so common for me to just lose my homework or just not hand it in the first place that they did not believe me. My high school had the whole like planner that you had to get signed by your parents every week. I think I remember 3 times remembering to go to my mum like on a Sunday night and be like, can you sign that? It never happened for me. It just never fucking happened. I very rarely wrote anything in it. Because even if I write something down, I don't remember where I wrote it down to go and look at it a lot of the time. Like I may as well show you. I have gotten to a point now where I have my to-do lists. This is what I have. I write it out every day. I have it on the arm of the couch where I sit a lot. And then I mark my shit off. That's the only way that I've been able, let me put that down. That's the only way that I've ever been able to write stuff down and actually get it done. That's it. Like my ex-boss used to randomly have me like write stuff down on a scrap of paper or write it into my phone. And it's like, yeah, it's in my notes app now. At no point but until you remind me of it am I going to remember that there's a note for me in my notes app. You know, like it's just not happening. And he'd be like, oh, we'll just check it in a few hours. I have no idea of like a concept of time, my dude. Like, I blink and it's been 7 hours, and then when I'm waiting for something, I'm like, oh, it's been like 3 hours now, right? No, it's been a minute. and that ties into executive dysfunction too, and I never fucking knew that until today when I was looking more into it. But it explains so much for me, because I'm one of those people, I'd be like, oh, the other week this thing happened, and my boyfriend's like, that was 4 years ago, honey, like that was a long time ago. And then like a week later I'll be like, oh, do you remember that thing? Do you remember this? Like it must have been like years ago, that was so long ago, do you remember it? And he's like, that was 2 weeks ago, I remember it very clearly. And I have no idea of like the timeline of my life, essentially. I find it very hard to like place when things were. I just don't have like linear time, doesn't exist to me. And that means that it's incredibly hard to like schedule things for a time basis. Like, I watched a video the other day of some girl's morning routine, and she got up and she went to the gym, and then she went grocery shopping, and then she went to work. And I was like, what the fuck? How do you do that? Because like fair dues, I can wake up at a certain time. I can make sure I go to the gym for an hour. And then I don't know how long I'm going to be shopping for. I don't know how long it's going to take me to walk to the shop. If I'm getting heavier stuff, it's going to take me longer to walk home. So I don't know what time I'll be getting home for. And I don't understand how people schedule to a time when I don't know how long anything's ever going to take. And like, if you've ever done this fucking Zoom call with me, shout out to Hassan. But like, that's why I'm always late to Zoom calls, Hassan. Every fucking time I put Zoom call the poor dude, I'm like, oh, can we do it like half hour later than I said? Like an hour before the allotted time. Because I do everything I can through the day to make sure I'm ready to Zoom call with my friend at the right fucking time. And it just never happens. And that was a fucking adjustment period for the both of us. It was the first time either of us had like been in a relationship. It was the first time either of us were moving out of our parents' homes, never mind in with someone. And suddenly it was just the two of us in this flat, just looking around like, what the fuck do we do? What do we do now? So we very quickly got like some furniture and shit and sort of tried to make it into a home. And you know, I did a decent job considering it was a horrible flat. But once we were settled was when things got tough. Things got tough because Rich would be in work all day, and then he'd come home and he'd be like, so why is there like piles of laundry and dishes and no food in, and you just haven't done anything today? And obviously I didn't have an autism diagnosis yet. I didn't know about executive dysfunction, so I had to look my boyfriend in the fucking face and be like, oh, I was playing Skyrim. You know, and this isn't some like, I'm the woman, so I need to do these house chores. It's a case of he goes to work and I don't, so I do the house. It's a very fair arrangement, but it was one that took me just forever to be able to get a grip on. So the first flat I had went through periods where it was just a fucking tip. Like, I was absolutely ashamed of it at some points because it was disgusting. And then I'd get this like spurt of motivation, or my mum would come over, or like something had happened that meant suddenly it was all like pristine again. And I'd be like, okay, fuck, I need to like fucking keep it like this time. I cannot go back to how it was before. And it'd be tidy for a week, and then 2 weeks, and then it'd be a little less tidy on the 3rd week, and a little less tidy on the 4th week. And then it'd be the same as it fucking was before, within like 3 months, you know? If that, depending on how like my mental health was a mess at the time, that was definitely some of it. But a lot of it was definitely executive dysfunction and autistic burnout. We were only in that flat for like 2 years though, and then we moved into the house that we're in now. And it's while we've been here that I've like really sorted myself out a lot. But I don't think it's all entirely healthy, I'll be honest with you. My house isn't the cleanest, you know. Like there's cobwebs in some of the corners of the ceiling. There's probably a bit too much cat fur behind a lot of the furniture. But if you don't look behind the furniture and you just look around, you know, I do me dishes, I get me washing done, I've mostly got clean clothes, I hoover every day. You know, I've more or less with the house stuff got my shit together. But I firstly had to turn it into a complete part of my routine. And that's where it starts getting like a little unhealthy, I think, because fair enough, I can hoover every day, yeah, that's good. But what about the day when I don't have any more laundry to do? It throws off my entire routine. I spend all day feeling like shit. What if we got takeout the night before and there's no fucking dishes? There's a bit of my routine just gone. And I spend the day feeling like something's just wrong and off and really anxious. And it's not a fun time at all. And with things like videos, I'm not organised enough clearly to have like a real schedule. The fact that I chose an upload schedule and thus far have stuck to it is an absolute fucking miracle. Completely forgotten what I was saying. It's completely gone. Fuck it, maybe this is a great example. This is another part of executive dysfunction. I have no attention span today. It is not there. Like, God help me if Rich thinks he's watching a film with me later. God, what was I saying? I'll go on to the next part of what I was going to talk about, which is also that a large part of why I managed to keep the house like as tidy and clean as it is, which, as I say, is not perfectly so, but good enough, is that I'm so incredibly anxious of it not being. Like, I used to be able to sort of ignore what other people would call a mess, because I knew it wasn't a mess. I knew that I was like doing this thing or like working on that or whatever else, you know, there was a purpose for it to be a mess. Whereas now, so much of the house, like living with 4 cats and a man, is out of my control. Like, I'll come down in the morning, I'm like, there's a cup where it shouldn't be, and there's like some Richard's left something over here where it shouldn't be, and there's cat litter on the floor. And whereas I used to just be able to ignore things because it was my mess, when it's not my mess, it drives me fucking crazy. And if I've already started doing it, I can do the rest then. I can clean up my mess once I've sorted Richard's mess, because I've already started, because that thing was driving me fucking mental. But that's not the healthiest way to be, is it? And it's also not fair on Rich that he can't fucking like leave anything around the house without me tidying it away. So that's where I'm learning and trying to be better. I don't really know what to do about it. It's something that like causes me a good amount of anxiety on the daily. But I was gonna say I'm trying, but I'm not trying anything because I really don't know what to do about it. Because it's a case of like, yeah, but if I stop being anxious about it, I'm gonna stop doing it. So then the house is gonna be a mess. You feel me? Oh, I've been talking for a good long while and spent a lot of time trying to remember what I was just saying through this. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. My final thoughts are that, for me, executive dysfunction is by far one of the most difficult parts of autism. And not only because it means that I'm not doing some of the shit that I fucking want to do, you know? It's not just frustrating to be me and to be sat there thinking like I want to do this thing but I'm not. It's also frustrating because people who don't experience it do not understand it. And like I see why you wouldn't, because I fucking experience it like most days of the week and I still really struggle to explain it or understand why I'm like this. It's a really difficult thing to wrap your head around, and from the outside I see why it looks like laziness or I just can't be bothered or oh well she doesn't want to do that so she won't. And it's none of that stuff, you know. It's just really fucking difficult sometimes to live as a person. But we get through it and we do better and we learn more and we get more skills and ways to accommodate to ourselves and adapt, and things will get easier. We just gotta put the work into making them easier, I guess. Sometimes I say things and I'm like, am I deep now? Am I Philoctetes? Philoctetes was that fucking alien in fucking Torchwood. What was I even trying to say? I guess I was going off the noise. I suppose I was going to ask if I'm a philosopher now. But that's not what I said, was it? Jesus Christ. This clearly... I think I've used up the last of like the 3 brain cells that were floating around inside my mind. I think I've used them and transferred them into this video. There's nothing left from me now. So I hope you have a lovely day, morning, evening, week, afternoon, month, year. I just hope you're in a good place. I'm in that place of like, I'm so frustrated that I need to laugh or I'll cry. So I'll see you in a few days.